All right.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. And the topic of today's session is, what is Windows Azure? And our guest speaker today is Pracheta Budhwar. She's a technology evangelist at Microsoft India. Pracheta has been in the IT industry for more than 10 years and currently works as technology evangelist at Microsoft. She has worked on a wide range of Microsoft products and technologies ranging from Windows Server, family right from NT Days, Exchange Server, System Center, and Link Server to latest developments on virtualization, private cloud, and Windows Azure. Pracheta has been in quite a few roles like infrastructure management, pre-sales, and consulting. She's a regular speaker at Microsoft events and other industry tech summits. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Pracheta.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Very good afternoon. As I just got introduced, you know who am I. And there are also my coordinates on the deck. So I do blog very often, and I'm very much active on Twitter as well. So if you want to be connected post today's webinar, I would be glad to be in touch. With that note, I think we can get started. Since we have got an hour at hand, the way I have planned today's discussion is to keep it for 50 minutes and give 10 minutes for Q&A. Yeah? Since we're going to talk about Azure, which is a very niche technology, Microsoft's cloud offering, I'm just going to get started very slow and then move into technicalities a little later. And so I'm just going to introduce you what Azure is, and then we'll move forward with what you can put on Azure, what are the considerations and workloads, etc. Okay. Feel free to put your questions across as we go along, because I will be looking at questions. So if there's any very, very relevant questions in between, I will take it up and read it aloud and answer it for the benefit of everyone. Okay. So with that understanding, let's get started. Even before I tell you what Azure is, we all know why cloud is so prevalent these days, why cloud computing is being talked about and embraced in industry at large. There's several reasons to it, and out of my experience working with customers across India and some of them in Southeast Asia, I can clearly say that this is going to stay. So if you are a person who's managing your environment, if you are the IT head, I'm sure you're already looking at some kind of cloud strategy in your own businesses. Right? So cloud is going to stay because it helps in all these things that I have observed in my own experience of 4 years in working in the cloud. One is really shortens the time to market your offering, your solutions, your services. So if it is for you are an IT inside an organization, your customer could be your own business people. Whereas if you are catering to your customers, time to market means that you can actually make your solutions, offering, application available to your customer at a lesser time. So the time window shrinks when you look at cloud. It is open and flexible, which means that whosoever provides a true cloud offering definitely provide the kind of openness which is needed. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you are looking at, let's say, Microsoft Cloud, for example, it's not that you can only put Windows workload there, right? You can bring on a, PHP website there. You can have Oracle as a DB. You can have Joomla, or you can have LangStack, right? So when it comes to cloud, it has to be open and flexible, and because it actually brings in lot of flexibility in terms of from whatever area you come from in terms of technology expertise. There is something in the cloud to offer, right? And we'll talk more about it. It is usage based, which means that of course whatever I'm using is what I'm paying, and this is one of the biggest advantage of moving towards cloud. The capex actually goes down and it's all about OPEX, and it becomes more important than ever to keep a tab on OPEX and plan your workloads accordingly. And usage based, of course, bring you down to a path where it becomes economical, right? So let's take an example. If I have got a web server which is running on my server on premise, let's say it is a basic application which is just for front end and a back end. It is running IS or any other front end web service and a back end database. It has got a capacity up to which it can scale, right? And whether it is being consumed or not, you very much have to keep it like your public-facing websites. You have to keep them up and running. But sometimes they are underutilized. Sometimes they need more resources, and you don't have them ready at times. All those scenarios is where cloud makes a lot of sense. So you pay for what exactly you use, and when it comes to elasticity or the capability to be always on and always available is what it brings to the table, which means if I have got a website which I put up on Azure, if it gets 1,000 hits, so be it. If it is getting a billion hits, it can scale up to. So when it comes to the elasticity part of it and the kind of availability that cloud brings to the table is enormous, absolutely enormous, right? And all of this is not going to be unmanaged, of course. You as ways in which I just want to make sure that all of us are on the same page. Of course, it helps to more. So if you are, it doesn't matter, because the applications that you are going to build, and if you are in the software and solutions that you are building today, you'll be offering to the customer, or you're already offering, you want to optimize and offer further, chances to grow with the cloud are enormous. And I'm not just talking about it, I'll just showcase that in a while. So what are the few things which are absolutely empirical when you move this path is that the kind of applications that are building today are very, very different than it used to be 10 years ago, right? So you can very much have a mobile service being written on the cloud, which will go back and talk to your database who's sitting in on-premise, and your customers or consumers could be anywhere and reaching from any device, right? So times are changing, and cloud actually brings that kind of disruption which takes IT industry to the next level. Now, with that said, if somebody has to look at cloud or look at cloud strategies, what could be the different ways to look at it? There are 4 ways in my understanding in which you can look at cloud. Of course, to get started with the gray box that you see here, consume services from the cloud. What does that mean? That as a complete product, some company is offering you a service and you consume it as a service. So when I say that, what happens? Let's give some examples here. If you have heard about Salesforce.com or let's say Office 365, what are these? These are software as a service. You go ahead and consume them, and it is managed end-to-end by the provider who's offering it. The provider could be Microsoft, could be any other vendor out there. They just provide it as a service. You subscribe, you consume. So you take it as a whole. So that is one way of looking at cloud, and it could be one part of your cloud strategy. The second is build in the cloud. That is what we are going to focus more on today, and that is where Azure comes into picture. Build in the cloud means that I will go ahead and start building my applications, my virtual machines, my infrastructure up there in the cloud, right? So it could be, as I said, it could be a website, it could be a complete cloud service, it could be just a virtual machine, or it could be a complete set of virtual machines. It could be anything. Yeah. So building in the cloud is where Azure plays. So Azure also you can look into 2 ways, and I'm going to talk about that in more details in the next slide. But on this slide, I just wanted to give you a sense of different kinds of cloud strategy that you can follow in different aspects of your organization. So for some workload, it might make sense to go ahead and build absolutely in the cloud, and we'll talk about more in detail. But maybe for others, consuming from the cloud makes sense. Maybe for others, building your own cloud makes sense. And what I mean by building your own cloud is private cloud, right? So you can build your own private cloud and keep everything on your premise and yet have some optimization into it. And the best of all is hybrid, which means that I have best of both worlds. I can have one leg on premise and another leg on the cloud. That's hybrid cloud. So depending on very specific scenarios, specific requirements, geographies, industries, choices vary. So in some industries I've seen more consumption or more tilt toward consuming the cloud services directly. In others, building the cloud services, or more often than not, hybrid comes into picture, right? But what I'm going to focus on is the block that you see on the top when you build in the cloud, and that's what Microsoft is all about. So if you look at building in the cloud, is what Windows Azure is. So what is Windows Azure now? Let's come to the crux of the discussion. Windows Azure is Microsoft Cloud Computing Platform. It offers various services in the cloud, which you can connect to. You can build your own solutions on top of it, and be with it. Now, what exactly it means to customers? It means that I might not have the servers, I might not have the infrastructure today, and I can yet go ahead and build a complete setup on the cloud. It also means that I might not have to have big chunks of storage on premise. I can also look at, as cloud also as a storage option. It also means that I'm going to look at application development in a new, with a new lenses altogether. I will optimize it for the cloud and build it so that it can scale to greater heights. And what Azure offers is all of this that you can see here. There are so many services, and of course, in the interest of time, we are not going to go through each of these app services, which means that you can go ahead and build your own website, a cloud service. As I said, it could be an identity service. We also have Windows Azure Active Directory on the cloud, which means that if your applications just need to get authenticated against the directory services, it's a LDAP based, you can go ahead and simply use a Azure Active Directory. Right? If you already have a Office 365 subscription, you already have Azure tenant. Okay, so and so on and so forth. So one is app services, or which you can build on the cloud, and other is data services. Now, what are data services? I can go ahead and simply ask for a SQL database. So if I'm a developer, or I have a team who develops, I might not want to set up a SQL on-premise and another web server, or some other application or middle tier. I will simply go and ask for a subscribe for a database and start using it. It could be anything. It could be big data for that matter. So HD Insight is our big data solution for in the cloud, right? Now, don't get confused if you're looking at all these things for the first time. It's just to share that this is all we offer in Azure, and there are a lot of them, right? So it's not only virtual machines, and it's just not a hosting solution. Rather, it is not only a data solution. It is a lot of things that Azure offers on the cloud. Now, before I move on and talk about anything else, it's very important to understand one very important concept, which is not a Microsoft concept. It's an industry term that has been coined, and it's called as infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, right? So if you want to look from that point of view, what you see on the topmost two are platform as a service, and the bottommost is infrastructure as a service, right? So what differs actually between platform as a service and infrastructure as a service is that when I say infrastructure as a service, you are only asking for infrastructure, which means that hardware is what you're asking for. You build your own operating system, you bring your own runtime, middleware, and and of course your applications. When you look at platform as a service, that's where you allow Microsoft to give you a kind of platform. It's not only what we provide. There could be plenty of platform on which you build your applications, but the platform is provided by us, which means that the operating system, the runtime, everything is managed by us. So if you choose your path to look at building application services, websites on the cloud in the PaaS model, that's where Microsoft will manage patching, availability, any kinds of upgrades, etc. Okay, whereas a lot of times only IaaS way makes sense. If you go that path and you want to build your own machines, your own network, and you just want the infrastructure from Microsoft. In that case, you just pay for the infrastructure, but you build from OS onwards, which means patching, antivirus, management, everything is your responsibility. Okay, so we have to be very, very understanding in the terms that what makes sense in your particular requirement. So in the same organization, few things make sense to be put up in the platform as a service mode, whereas another one you just want to whatever is running on your virtual environment on your premise, you want to just move that to the cloud, or or vice versa. You have to seriously understand that what infrastructure as a service will offer you and what platform as a service will offer you. Okay, there are enough documentations available. I will definitely share some of the good resources that you can refer to towards the end of the discussion. But I just wanted to make sure that you know that what all we offer, right? So there are a lot of things and lot many coming as the time passes. With Azure, the update cycle is very, very, very fast. So every 2-3 months we have some new addition coming in. So with that, what exactly is happening? Where is Microsoft hosting all this data, hosting all these servers? So we have got a global presence. We have got data centers across the globe. We have got 10 data centers. So earlier we had 8. Recently we added 2 more in Japan. So we have got data centers across the globe. We have got global support, as you can see. What I mean, so I'm not going to talk about each one of these things. I think the deck says it all, and you get the idea that when it comes to a global footprint, we have got that. So if you are an Indian customer and you have got a US, let's say if you are an Indian organization and you've got a US customer and you want to build an application and cater to that geography, there is no need to build it anywhere near India. You simply build it in the US data center and offer it from there, so they have the best performance. The closest one to India is Singapore and Hong Kong, and I'll talk about more about the data center in detail. Now, what it matters, how it matters that where they reside, it really matters because of the land of law, because of some of the very tight regulatory reasons, like European Union. They really want their data not to go out. So we have got 2 data centers in Europe, one in Netherlands, one in Ireland, so that there is geo-redundancy as well as the data is not going out. Right. Same holds true with US and Southeast Asia now in Japan. Okay. I'm just gonna very quickly go ahead and talk about, I just introduce what is Windows Azure. Maybe some of you have already heard about it, read about it. Now I'm going to talk about why Windows Azure, okay? Why it makes sense to look at it in the first place, okay? So these are the 3 main areas which compelled me or might encourage you to look at Azure. And once we go through this quickly, I will also have a couple of demonstrations that I will want to showcase, show you how the portal looks like, how easy or difficult to navigate through, etc. Now, what I mean by time to market, as we discussed earlier, is that the turnaround time to market your product solution becomes fast, which means you deliver fast, there is less waiting time in terms of procuring hardware or scaling your systems and services to new scales. So when it comes to right from provisioning to maintenance, hassle all will be taken care because it's not on your data center, it's Microsoft data center. Okay. Having said that, as I have initially mentioned, word of caution: if you are going the PaaS way, there are things different than when you go the IaaS way. Okay, and since a lot of people in India have a great uptake about infrastructure service, I'm going to talk about that in greater detail. You can, however, you are actually making this transition towards the cloud, doesn't mean that you have to unlearn a lot. Okay, whatever you have learned is not going to go redundant. So the tools that if as a developer you have been using certain tools, you can use the same tools or development platforms on the cloud. If you are an infrastructure person and you have been managing your virtual machines, managing it remains the same when you go up in the cloud, and I will go about those things in details in some time. Nothing changes from a day-to-day activity perspective, which means that there's no learning curve again. It actually ties back to time to market, which means that if I'm taking the journey to the cloud, doesn't mean that I have to hire 5 new people with new skill sets. No. And likewise, if I am a regular person in IT, I am not redundant because cloud is now is coming in. You just have to up your skill a little bit and you're good to go. There's no reason to learn a lot of new things very, very differently just because your workloads are not going to run on the cloud. It remains very much the same. And you innovate faster. Now, this is very, very important because what we have seen, and it is not only IT industry, it's any industry, whosoever does it first, does it fast, takes the most of the benefit and the market imagination, right? It's no-brainer, and it is not particular to technology, it's particular to anything. So when it comes to your solution, if you are building it on-premise and building it took you 3 months, and if you go in the cloud and you have accomplished that in 1.5 months time or 1 month's time, of course, you have a better chance to compete with your competitors, right? Open and flexible, what does it mean? That I as Microsoft, give all the third-party platforms equal opportunity to run on top of our data center and shine, right? Which means that Linux is a first-class citizen on Azure. It's not that if it is Azure, I'm only going to run Windows operating system. Of course not. We have got a lot of sources, and when I will show you the demo, you'll see for yourself that even the gallery that we are giving by default in the management portal has a lot of open source technologies and framework available for people to go ahead and consume. So if you are a developer, you can go ahead and start developing on Azure. You don't have to worry about server, virtual machine, nothing. You simply go and start building your cloud service or application or website. So you start, for you it is a platform, use it as a platform, as a service, and you do what you are good at, development, right? So if you write codes, if you develop new solutions, you do that. Don't worry about what lies underneath. That is what we take care of, right? That's what platform as a service is. So you can, if you have expertise in .NET or Java or Ruby, Python, or a lot of new things are coming in, there are all these languages available for you to use as a building block and build your own solution, right? And same goes with databases, content management frameworks, etc. So when it comes to building anything on Azure, right from databases, middlewares, content management framework to the language in which you write your code, it remains the same, and to the operating system. So it is absolutely flexible and open. You can bring whatever makes sense to you. And of course, economics, right? I am actually going to charge you for what you consume. And that's what true cloud economics is all about. And this is one of the most important factor why people move to the cloud. I'm sure it is no-brainer that I am only going to pay for what I'm using. What does that mean? It means that if if you have X amount of resources that you're consuming, you pay for X. Tomorrow when you consume 5X, I will charge you 5X, and maybe later if you just use 1.5X, I will charge you 1.5X, or if it drops down to 0, it's all right. You can any day say that I want to move out of cloud, and your billing stops, right? So it is absolutely based on what you consume is what you pay. Very, very relevant for a lot of your own workloads that you might be running on your environment right now, right? So let's look at one of the very oftenly identified workload for the cloud, and that is websites, public-facing websites, test and dev environments. So in public-facing website, nobody keeps customer data, any kind of sensitive information, etc. Right? So even if you are a skeptic for cloud, that is one thing which can go up on the cloud, and it makes all the sense, right? So your website, if you build on the cloud, it can take up whatever load is been thrown at it. If it requires elasticity, it will flex itself and shrink itself, and you don't have to really worry about. And you pay for what is being consumed. Likewise, there are so many other workloads that make sense. I just spoke about test and web. If let's say take an example. So the first example I gave was for website, which comes under the platform as a service category. But let's look at infrastructure as a service category. You've got a test and dev environment on premise, and let's say there are 10 developers who work on it, and the projects that they're working on, and hence you provide them in virtual machine. Now, if I choose to put it in the cloud, how things differ? One, I might not have any more servers left in my data center, but I can still give my developers a working space, a compute environment. Second, since it is a test and dev environment, I can choose to shut it down when they are not working. So I might only run those virtual machines for 8 hours a day, and I will only be charged for 8 hours a day, and weekends I don't turn them on. Okay, so it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. So the very first thing that comes to a lot of people talk about what is the difference between private and public cloud. Of course, the biggest difference is that in one you have everything on your premise, and second it is at one of the Windows locations. So if you look at public cloud and you look at Microsoft, Azure has got data centers across the globe, and that's where your workloads, virtual environment, storage, everything sits. Okay. Which one turns out to be cost effective? Of course, figures say it all. So when it comes to big so if I look at a very, very big private cloud, that's where so it's a small private cloud, it's one small instance that you are consuming on public cloud. It turns out to be not a big difference, but the difference actually crops in when you start looking at the size and the scale. So when it comes to public cloud, the starting price state is pretty steady, whereas so when it comes to enterprises where they are looking at private and public cloud, you can see that as you keep on growing, if you have more servers in your data center and you choose to keep some on premise and some on the cloud, you will see a huge difference, right? So as the number increases, the kind of turnaround time, that kind of economics that you see changes dramatically, right? Now, with that, there are a couple of questions which I'm sure comes to everyone's mind. I think I'll come to this deck a little later. Let me bring something else up, which is going to be of, so what is the kind of scale that we bring in? Just give me a sec. So let me do this, yeah. So how do I get started on Azure? And I'm just going to spend 2 more minutes, and then I have to move to demo and talk about, and rather walk you through the complete management portal. But what I wanted to tell you, what I've been speaking till now, is what it translates into the management portal. You can go ahead and you can see that if I'm going to choose to create a virtual machine, I have got all kinds of flavors up there which have been created. These are the images which are available in the gallery. I can simply go ahead and consume them. At the same point of time, I have a choice to bring my own images, which means that I can prep a set of, a kind of virtual machine that I want, and bring that image up to the cloud and use that as the benchmark. Some organizations have their own hardening mechanism, etc. You can actually keep that kind of VHD and bring it up online and start using it. Or you can choose to just identify one of the workloads, and you don't want to prep it because that's just one workload. You want to just lift and shift. Okay, then bring that disk on the cloud and we are good to go. How do you bring the disk on the cloud? It is all very, very seamless and straightforward with Microsoft. So how it happens, Azure understands VHD. So if you have got a Hyper-V on-premise, VHD is the format in which you store your virtual machines. In case you don't have, in case you have got a VMware or any other, how it works, let me tell you. It's not navigating through. So this is one way of looking at it, which means you log into the portal, create a new VM from the gallery, and you're good to go. Second would be you can create your own VHD, which means that I have my set of environment, I have my OS, and then I block some ports, and I install an application, and then I want to harden it and make that as a image. Okay, go ahead and do that, just prep it and bring it and use that as an image going forward, and you can build a virtual machine from that as well. Other thing happens with that, people say that if I want to look at other images, which are, one is of course the basic images that we offer on the portal. If we have to go beyond that, there's something called as VM Depot, is where you can go and look at all the different virtual machine images which are non-Microsoft, and all the different flavors of it. So there are plenty of ways in which you can go ahead and build your own environment. Yeah, so you can actually, you can browse through the VM Depot, and if specifically to particular Linux flavor, let's say CentOS or Ubuntu, and you can have a hardened environment which has been already created by the community and ported there, right? So you can choose to use VM Depot. So there is one way. So if it is either on the gallery, or you have it on premise and you bring it on Azure and start using that as an image, or you can look at VM Depot if it is one portal which helps you. Yeah. Another question that comes very often, I am not using Hyper-V on-premise, I have got a VMware environment. How do I port my virtual machines to the cloud? You have to convert them once, and then you're good to go. Now, all these things brings to one more very interesting question, which I'm sure a lot of people ask, and that is about data security, right? So when it comes to security, how can I be sure that my data is secure? How can I be sure that what are the compliances that you abide by? I'm going to put everything up in the cloud. It is not in my premise anymore. How can I be rest assured that things have been taken care of? These are the general questions that we get a lot. Okay, so I would definitely like to answer them by showing you where you find answers for them, so that you for yourself can look up in your own sweet time and read more about it. So there's something called as windowsazure.com. It's a website, windowsazure.com. You go there and you can see right from pricing to this pricing calculator as well. Right from pricing, how my virtual machines are priced, to how my websites are priced, and you can see that for every service that I spoke to you about, right? App services, data services, compute services, etc. You have pricing details. You can go ahead and look for those. Second thing that I get a lot of questions about is security, right? So there's something called as under support there's something called as Trust Center. So you can go ahead and look at what all we follow, right from the compliance point of view, right from the auditing point of view, right from the security measures point of view. Everything is up there. So you can go ahead and explore that. It's called as Azure Trust Center. Just search for Windows Azure Trust Center and it will take you here. It'll tell you that what all ISO standards we follow, as I said, penetration testing, and you can see for yourself that what do we do for Azure security, for network security, for encryption, for for every single detail has been put up out there. Okay, so right, as I said, right from security to compliance, right? So compliance, a lot of questions come up, depending on the industry you work for. So if you work in the pharma, maybe HIPAA is one of the big compliant thing that we're looking at. It could be, if it is some other industry, it could be PCI or it could be SOX. So we have published everything up on the portal. So just look at windowsazure.com, that's our website, and or look for the Trust Center. This is where you get all the details. We are SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant, attestations, Cloud Security Alliance control metrics, what we abide by. So lot of accreditations and lot of compliance that we go through every now and then. This is not it. We also from a auditing point of view, we of course do our self-auditing and find out if there is any area of improvement, and we also do third-party auditing. Right? So third-party auditing happens very often, and those details are also uploaded here. So if you are looking at Azure and you have any of the doubts about security, or trust me, if I don't keep my data centers secure, if I don't abide by privacy policies, I will run out of business. So we are not in here for any kind of data. So whatever you put there is yours, and we definitely don't go ahead and look into that. So rest be assured. And therefore, I wanted to bring this up as the first thing, because you might have few questions. Please refer to Windows Azure Trust Center and you will find your answers. Okay. Now you can see that where all we keep our data. So this is another thing that people ask for. These are the places where we have our data centers: United States, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Japan. And United States has got 4 regions: Virginia, California, Illinois, and Texas, and likewise other places. So there is enough information available for you to go ahead and look at. And as I said, EU has European Union has very strict data protection policies. We abide by that, Harbor framework, etc. So safe harbor framework, I mean. Okay, so there are enough things for you to go back and look at if you really have questions about security and privacy. We take it very seriously, and you'll find all those compliance and security policies, frameworks, coherence that we abide by up there for your consumption. Okay. Now, this session is, I can see some of the questions which are very specific to specific technology, etc. This is just to introduce you to what Windows Azure is all about. Okay. I can very well talk about a lot of other things, but in the interest of time, we're going to keep it to introducing you to the Windows Azure. Right. So this is how the Azure Management Console looks like. All of you can go ahead and subscribe for a free trial version, and so the first windowsazure.com, if you go, you can subscribe for a free trial subscription, and you get a 30 days free trial or $200 of expenditure that you can actually go ahead and try things out. So if you are a developer and you want to see how you go ahead and start, if you want to know that how do I start working, or for let's say data, or for anything else, we have solutions. So it's the best thing. I'll walk through and tell you all the services, but it's the best thing to go ahead and start using for yourself. And as I said, a free trial account is up for grabs, so go ahead and subscribe yourself there. Now, this is one way of managing. So this is the foremost and easiest way to manage your Azure environment, which means, or Azure subscription as we call it, is that I connect to this with my Live ID, and I'm good to go. If you're an organization and you want your employees, you want to purchase X dollars of Azure for 6 months, and you want your employees to start consuming from that, there is a provision for that as well. What I'm showcasing right now is more from an individual point of view. Okay, so if you are a developer, if you are a startup, if you are an infrastructure person and you are getting started with it, this is the first thing that you connect to. You get to your management portal. So what this management portal will give you, you can actually click your create your website, manage them. Okay, so if I have got a website here, I can go ahead and look at the dashboard, and it will tell me how things are happening on that particular website, whether it is running, if there is any kind of configuration change that I want to do on that particular virtual machine, in that particular website, I can do that. So you can see it is running on a .NET Framework version 4.5, PHP version 5.4, and lot of things. WebSockets are off. If I want to make any changes, I will simply, once things are up and running, I can come here and make the changes, and we'll be good to go. Likewise, virtual machines, cloud services, HD Insight. HD Insight is our offering for BI or big data. For big data, you can actually go ahead and create an HD Insight cluster and get started, which means that all the processing will happen at the Azure end, and you just get the analytics of it. You don't have to set it up on your premise. Yeah. Storage, very interesting. You can actually go ahead and create your own storage account. Storage account is nothing but creating a contour kind of thing, and say that please port all my all this X project related files and virtual machines there. I have seen organizations using it for one storage account for important application, one for test and dev. I have seen people using it in various ways. But please do create a storage account before anything else, because if you don't, you will see that you get all these alphanumeric portal, VHD, blah, blah, blah. So what happens if you don't create a storage account and define that while you're creating a VM or anything else, it will create a random generated account, and later when you have so many of them like I do, it becomes very difficult to identify that which storage is actually storing that particular website or virtual machine. So that is the best practice you should always follow. Now I'm just going to showcase that how easy or difficult it is to create anything or getting started on Azure. Now even before that, how do we store data? We store data in blobs, binary long objects. That's one of the recent ways of doing data storage, and we follow blob storage. So everything gets down to blob and tables. So if it is a database, it is tables, etc. Otherwise, it is blob. So let me do one thing. If I go there and show you the dashboard, you can see I have got blobs, tables, queues. So depending on, and I can see if I have got any containers there. That's the way you start managing and starting on the storage front. But why I'm talking about this, because this is one of the things that I've seen people just not starting using it the way it should be. So if you start with your Azure trial subscription, please go ahead and create a storage account first. It will not charge you anything, it's just a contour. So you give it a name which you can make sense of it later, right? So if I have got a SQL always on storage, so if I connect on my SQL always on, I know that my SQL always on database is residing here, right? I can of course build a SQL always on Azure. It is absolutely doable, supported, etc. Yeah. Now let's go ahead and start building something. So if I start building something, and you can see it's context sensitive. I was in the storage, so I said new. It is giving me options to go ahead and create under data service, right? I can go ahead and create a SQL database or a storage, simply a storage account, or it could be recovery service for my data backup, etc. Or I can go ahead and choose something else. So let's say I choose to create a website or a virtual machine. How easy or difficult it will be? Let's see. So if I go and choose to create a website, I can either quick create, custom create, or from the gallery. Okay. So I am not a website designer, so maybe I will simply see that what kind of frameworks are available, and I can pick and choose and later make modifications. So These are all different kinds of frameworks that are available on the gallery. I can go ahead and choose which one makes sense for me, and I can get started. Okay, it is as simple as that. There are also templates on the left hand side. You can see that. Right? So it's if Drupal Commerce Kickstart, because I'm going to build a website which will have a shopping cart, I might want to incorporate this framework. I'll give a URL. I'll give that which region I want to put that in, and I'll be good to go. So I'll say maybe East Asia or Southeast Asia, and I'll say that whether I want to create a new SQL database for this or a new MySQL, or I already have an existing database, and I'll just put that thing up and we are good to go. That's all. That's all that is needed, right? Now you might have noticed that you have started creating a website and it never asked you which OS, which IP address. No, because if I'm creating a website, I'm using it as a platform as a service, which means Azure will provide me the platform, all the platform which is needed, and I am only worried about my own website design, how I scale it, how I architect it, right? So platform has been taken care by Microsoft in this case. Okay. Whereas the other situation could be that I choose to create a virtual machine, which means I choose to create, you can see I have a lot of images up there, Ubuntu, CentOS, etc. So let's say I simply stick to Windows Server, and that's what I'm good at. So I'll simply connect to, I say I want to create a virtual machine here. Here it will start asking me all the questions, right? It is asking me what is the size of the virtual machine, and you can see that I have got many sizes for the virtual machine. Why? Because I'm going to charge you based on this. If your workload is going to take not too much of CPU, you might want to go ahead with a small. If it wants more, you go ahead with more. Of course, you can pick and choose what makes sense for your workload. But since you are going to build on top of it, it is giving you choice to decide what is going to be the size, how much memory, how much CPU. Yeah, I can choose any one of them. I can give a virtual machine name, etc., and I get started. What I really wanted to highlight here is that if you are going to use Windows Azure as infrastructure as a service, you have to build your infrastructure foundation first, which means if I'm going to create a virtual machine there, I as an administrator or the IT head should know that what this virtual machine is going to do, whether it is going to talk to any other, if it has to, do I want to keep it in a subnet, etc. And that brings in virtual networking. So I can go ahead and create a network up in the Azure and and define that all my new test in their virtual machine should be connected on this subnet and they talk to each other, and you have better control. You can take it to the next level by defining some more networking features. I'll talk about that in a while. Now, very quickly, if I give it a name, let's say and I will never take admin as a username, so I'll give mine username, let's say. And I say next. Okay, so what I've said, I want the virtual machine which is medium in size, and it is asking me that whether I have any kind of cloud service that I want to connect to, or I want to simply create a new one. For me, it's a new installation, and I will choose that whether I will choose either from a region point of view, or I go ahead and choose from a virtual network. I already have some virtual network, and I already have some affinity groups. I can choose, let's say I want to keep it in a network which I already created. Okay, these things, as I said, that there's so many things that we can talk about Azure in a detailed deep dive discussions. Today is more to just tell you that what it offers. What I wanted to simply convey in this particular demonstration is that if you are building your workloads on top of virtual machines on Azure, you have to define your network first. You have to take care of firewall policies. You have to define that which subnet will talk to whom, etc. Right? So if I have already created a virtual network, I simply selected that, and it is telling me that this is the subnet that your virtual machine is going to connect to, and you get an IP address from that. And it is also asking me that whether I want to store the VHD of this virtual machine in an existing storage account, or I want to create it automatically generated. Of course, I don't want. I will say that this is the one, and then I will define whether I want availability set or not. Now, that brings us to very important aspect of it. I'm not going to create a virtual machine. It will take 5-7 minutes to complete, and it's not a big deal. I'll say next and we are done. What I wanted to showcase is how it is done and some more concepts. Now, that will bring me to the deck again, and let's talk about it, because that is one of the very important things that people ask about. That you say that things will be always on, how will they be, right? So how exactly we provide availability? From a storage point of view, as soon as you build anything on Azure, you will have 3 storage copies of it. Okay, so if you build a virtual machine, it will have a 3 storage copies, which means one storage goes bad, the other will be consistently synchronized, and it will, it will connect to the VM, and it will keep on running. 3 instances, 3 copies of storage runs in the same data center. That's how we provision it. Okay, which means that your data will always be available. Yeah, and you can also choose to geo-replicate it, which means that I have a Singapore data center, I have got my virtual environment running or my websites running, etc. And I want to geo-replicate that to the next available one in the geography, which is Hong Kong. Which means that I might want to have one more data set there, which means total 6 copies running. If something bad happens to this complete data center, I have geo-redundancy built in. Okay, and which is just at a fraction of, so if 3 copies you get by default, and if you choose to go with geo-redundancy, you will have a little bit more dollar value associated with it, but that's about it. It's not a big number, but of course you are occupying more storage, so you have to. So it's a choice that we give. When you are creating the storage account, which I was talking about earlier, that's where you say that whether this storage account I want to geo-replicate or not. Okay, so once it is geo-replicated, so first of all, let's understand that you are running one virtual machine and it has got 3 3 storage. If one storage goes bad, doesn't matter, the other storage the virtual machine will connect to. Okay, and if you choose to go with the geo-redundancy, we will actually put it across another data center, which is at least 500 miles away, so it will take care of any catastrophic failure, etc. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that if you don't have geo-replication, you will not have data availability? No. Even if normal data availability, we give a 99.9% SLA. Therefore, we keep 3 copies of data all the time. But if I have that, does it ensure that my virtual machines are always available? Probably not. If I have just one virtual machine, it might have 3 storage. So storage is always available, but for virtual machine, if I want to keep them highly available, I have to put them in availability set. So what I'm trying to bring to your notice is, if you are building your own infrastructure on the cloud, it is very important and essential to define what you want. If it is a virtual machine, test and dev, I create a virtual machine, it has got 3 copies of storage, I'm good enough. But if it is a production environment and it is going to be very important, I definitely will not run it in one virtual machine. That's how you do it on premise as well, isn't it? If it is a critical workload, you don't run in one instance. It must be running in more than one instance, right? So that's how we do it on the cloud as well. And one very important thing from a networking point of view, which I want to bring to your notice, is this, which means that you can actually extend your infrastructure to the cloud. In case you have on-premise environment and you want to your cloud subscription to come back and talk to your on-premise world, you can build a network between these two, which means I can have a site-to-site VPN kind of thing. Okay, which means from my data center I connect to my Azure subscription and extend, which means that at my on-premise level, I will define on the gateway routing mechanism, and it will route traffic between on-premise and Azure. Which means Azure will become just like my branch office, isn't it? I will simply put my new virtual machine, new workload, or whatever I choose to on the cloud, and they can come back and talk to each other, which means I can very much have my applications up there which I want to authenticate again my Active Directory on-premise. I can do that, right? But it's a good idea if you have too many applications on the cloud, you might want to run an Active Directory there, which means inside a VM, or you might want to look at Windows Azure Active Directory. I'm sure by now you have got an idea about how much you can go ahead and look at from Azure, how much it offers. I just touched base upon two things today, only websites and virtual machines. And there are just so many services which are available. So I absolutely urge you to go ahead and look at windowsazure.com. On the portal you get a lot of information, and we are also hosting a conference in Bangalore. So those of you who are in Bangalore, it's a good time to actually join us. So I'll just share the details. So Windows Azure Conference.in is our website. You can go ahead and register. It's happening this Thursday, Friday in Bangalore. With that, I'm just going to open the floor for questions, and I can already see that there are quite a questions in there. I will just read them and go one by one. Okay.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Prachita. Let's quickly take up the question as you have just mentioned. I request you to read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your insights.
Sure. So there are some questions. So there's a question saying that we use service, what will be the data security? I already mentioned. So windowsazure.com, you go and look at data privacy, etc. There's a question that if I shut down my virtual machine on Azure, will it be considered turned off, or it won't be built? Good question. If you deallocate, which means if I run a virtual machine and then I RD
Please be online. I think we have a little problem at the speaker's side. So we will just fix it and come back.
Hello?
Yes, Prachita, can you hear me?
I hope you
Prachita,
guys hear me.
yes, you are audible. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So
Perfect. So I think we lost the connection somehow. So are you able to see the questions, the queries that are coming in to you?
I can actually. Just a sec. I somehow. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it is better. So if you would like to take some of the questions.
Actually, I don't know how you have. Actually, it's not detecting. So it is not detecting my phone. I'm on speaker, so but I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are audible. You are audible. So you can
Okay,
take.
great. So actually, you put me on.
You
It's not
are
detecting
live.
my headset.
Not a problem. If
Sorry.
you, the
So
audience are able to
I
hear
was
you.
asking. Okay, sorry about that inconvenience. I don't know how my data, handset was not detecting. So there were a couple of questions. Shut down the VM. So the one thing is, as soon as you create a VM, you actually connect to the virtual machine through an RDP. If you go inside the RDP and shut it down, the Azure will not understand whether you are shutting it down for your own, maintenance purpose or whatever. So it will not consider it as a deallocated one. So if you want the billing to stop, you have to shut it down from the portal. Okay, from the Azure portal, shut it down. It will be in deallocated condition, and you will not be charged for that. Okay. Okay. So there is a question from somebody, very interesting one, that somebody has virtualization, SharePoint, Hyper-V in place, and how does it make sense from we have all data centers on in our premises. Why would I look at Azure, right? So in the very start, as I mentioned, that the whole intent of cloud, be it Microsoft or any other, is not to take away everything that you have in your data center, and that's not I ever talked about in today's presentation. The whole idea is that there is an alternate way of doing IT. There's an alternate way of looking at business. So maybe your test and dev for your environment, if you have everything running absolutely fine and you think you are getting the kind of ROI that you always expected, great. It's just another way of doing the same thing on the cloud. Yeah, it makes a lot of difference to optimization and scalability, which is most of the times not achievable on premise. So as I gave the example in the very start, a website which is highly scalable, right? You might want to keep everything on premise. You might want to only put your public website on, or if you have any seasonal kind of application or services which are coming to the industry, you don't know whether you want to run it for 5 years. So you don't want to invest into hardware. You rather put it up for 6 months and see whenever the seasonality is there, it is up and running. It could be, it could be for backup. It could be for, big data. You might have Hyper-V, you might have SharePoint, you might have a lot of other things on premise, and you're happy with it. Good to hear. But do you have a BI solution? If you have to build it from scratch on premise, you have an option to look at Azure as well, right? Likewise for other services. So there's just not one, it's not just virtual machine that you can do on Azure. That's what my whole intent was in the very start, and I will definitely like to bring that back again before we go back, before we end this, is to just make sure that you understand that Azure is just not about virtual machine. Okay, it is about so many other things. Now with that, I'll take another question here. I think I'll be able to take one more question here, and the question is, okay, Azure service performance will be dependent on internet speed. That's a question. So Azure performance will not depend on internet speed, but how you connect to it, Azure's portal is through the internet, right? So of course, if you are in a dial-up connection, the experience will be not good, right? So this is an important aspect. Actually, a good that you have asked is in country like ours where internet is not very dependable. Again, it's a debatable thing that what you want to. It's not that what you put on Azure is very much dependent. It might be available, but if your internet is down, you might not be able to access it. So it's very, very crucial to understand from an enterprise's point of view. If you are going to save X cost by going to the cloud, it's worth looking at investing into bandwidth and infrastructure from an internet perspective by fifth of the cost, so that your experience never goes down. But that's a valid one. If you are if you're an end user and you're just thinking from building something up, and you absolutely have to look at and that is with any cloud vendor, right? So it's not that Azure is running on our data center on a very, very, very high speed internet. So till the point it goes out from my data center, I will also tell you that on the website, etc., it's mentioned that how much bandwidth has been allocated to each virtual machine, each instance, which is very, very huge from a from a connectivity point of view. But as soon as it comes out of there, it depends on your ISP, on the kind of bandwidth that you have subscribed for, of course. But it doesn't. So if your internet is slow, doesn't mean that Azure is not performing well or your websites will be down. So your website, if for example you have put on Azure, those who are connecting from anywhere in the world, if they have better connectivity, they'll be able to connect. Okay, if you have your internet is down, will only affect your performance, which will very much differ if it is the website was hosted on your setup and your setup had any kind of problem, then nobody will have had the experience. I hope you get the difference. Okay, I'll take one more question and let's go.
Okay, Prachita, due to time constraint, I have to
Using
request you
Azure,
to take the unanswered questions offline, which I will share with you through email. So before you sum up the session, as you said, you can take one more question. So please go ahead. After that, you can sum up the session for today and we would
all
close
right.
down.
Awesome. So there's one more question saying that Azure is private cloud. So Azure is the public cloud. If you have to build a private cloud with Microsoft technologies, you can use Hyper-V and System Center. That's the stack that will help you to build your own private cloud. Azure is the public cloud offering, which means we host the data center, we host everything for you. You either consume it as platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. And as I was discussing, there are two places where you can go, and I'm sure you will get all the answers. One is windowsazure.com, and other is luckily we just have a very big conference in Bangalore. If you want to learn more about and in detail discussions which we will have across tracks, I urge you to join us if you are in Bangalore to Windows Azure conference. With that, I would really like to thank each one of you for taking out time and asking interesting questions. Unfortunately, not all of them could be answered, but I will, through TechGig team, I'll get back to you on those. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
And I'm really thankful to our guest speaker today for conducting this wonderful webinar. It was indeed a great session. And I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Prachita, for taking the time out. Have a great evening ahead.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.